Hey, everybody. Welcome to the podcast. We're not even really sure what we're going to call this thing yet, so I'm just going to say welcome to the podcast. It's going to be brought to you by Rat Hole Drilling Inc. I am Keith Hevlin, your host, and with me is my co-host, Clay Blair. Clay, thanks for getting all of your technology struggles out of the way and making this work today, man.
I didn't know this was going to be the struggle that it is. But what I'll also tell you is I haven't learned anything about any of this.
I would agree with that statement. That is a valid statement. So what you guys don't know is we just started the podcast to count down. And right as it started recording, Clay started talking. So we started over. So this is take two.
This is take two
of the first episode of the podcast. So anyway, first episode of the podcast. I feel like we should do a little bit of backstory so people know who we are, know where we're coming from. Not that anybody's going to listen to this or care, but I felt like it was a good place to start. So does that sound like a good plan for you?
Sure.
All right. So we're going to start with you first.
That's exactly what I want to do.
Yeah. So we're going to start with you first. Tell me a little bit about yourself. Like, because I actually don't even know where you grew up. I assume you grew up in the Robstown, Cal area, but you tell me.
Mom and dad still live in the house that I grew up in, about a mile and a half from where we are at the tractor store right now.
Oh, wow. Okay.
My older brother and I grew up and went to Cal Allen. I guess if you want to start at the very, very beginning, we moved from Houston in sometime around 1980, I think.
Okay, so quick question about that. So your dad, though, went to school at what is now A&M, Corpus Christi, because and the reason I know that is through Jag, because he was roommates with Jag, right?
Right. So don't you dare offend Dad that he actually grew up in Corpus when everybody in South Texas knows that Harold T. Blair is a diehard Three Rivers Bulldog.
My fault.
I mean, don't you dare.
Intended. That is my fault.
But that's right. He did, out of high school, went to Corpus Christi. In fact, I think came here on a football scholarship, and he was not any bigger than I was in high school, 165 pounds maybe, and he was the center. He was the center at Three Rivers, and somehow ended up, I can't remember if there was a scholarship or just what, but that was also the year that they ditched the football program. So he didn't play any football at CC, at whatever it's called, at the university now.
Yeah, I don't know what it was back then. Yeah, that's interesting. Okay, so obviously he moved away. You guys were in Houston when you were born, because you were born in 1977. So then you moved back to the Corpus area, Cal Allen area in 1980?
I think that's right. I think I was, in 1980. Dad got a job. It's funny. I drive by that building. The company was called Mason Elin, and it's right there. It's on 37 at maybe Corn Products. I think it's a fabricator now. But anyway, I drive by that building. That is the building that basically shaped my life, that brought us to Corpus. And, as they would say, the rest is history. Let's talk about it.
So, okay, tell me about this building.
Well, I mean, not so much the building, but
well, of course,
that when I drive by that building, I always think that's why we are here. That's what shaped my life is Dad getting a job in that building.
So what was it?
And brought us from Houston to Corpus.
What was the work? What was the job?
I don't know. It was the company was called Mason Elin. I assume it was some kind of Dad has a mechanical engineering degree. I believe that's right. And that's what he did all of his first career, I guess, because then we turned him into a tractor salesman later in his career. But
sure.
That's what Dad did. The way I described Dad's jobs, and worked for that Mason Elin company for a while, but then moved to the one that he actually retired from. And that was selling valves and meters to the refineries.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Okay. So then you grew up in Cal Allen. Did you go to college? Where did you go to college? What did you get a degree in?
Went to Texas Tech, graduated Cal Allen in 95.
That's a long way out there, man. I went to Texas Tech to watch the women's basketball team play against them, the A&M. Good gosh, that drive. Whew.
Back
That
then
was
it was you could do it in 8 hours. I have to tell you, I've got to come clean on this. I'm pretty proud of this. Wasn't safe, but the last
to
time
be clear.
I did it in 6.5 hours
Wow.
from Lubbock to Corpus.
Completely legal though, right? Like did not
Good
break any
Lord.
laws. Did not break any laws.
Luckily, there was not a DPS in sight that day. 6.5 hours. I mean, we
That's
were smoking it.
crazy.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's crazy. Yeah, I drove out there with the kids in Deanna, and my gosh, I was like, I'll never come out here ever again. There's no reason to come out here ever again.
When you're going out there, it's the last 2 hours. Once you come up on the Cap Rock,
Mm-hmm.
I always came in at Sweetwater. It's from there to Lubbock that always seemed like the worst, and that's 2 hours. That's how you broke it up into the 8 hour segments back then. You're going to be on each highway for about 2 hours.
Oh, interesting. Okay,
Yeah.
I didn't pay attention to that, but yeah,
Yeah.
no, that was something. That's all I can say is that was something. Okay, so you go to Texas
that's
Tech.
where I went. Got out of there with a agricultural economics degree, ag eco, we called it.
So what does that mean?
It was a degree. That's what I needed. And I thought, back then I thought, well, you've got to get a degree.
What's what they told all of us is that we had to have a degree.
That's right.
Yeah.
And now we all question that. And I still question
now we go, wait a minute, do you really need a degree? Because
that's exactly right.
Yeah.
Yeah. But anyway, that was that was the degree that I was not going to have to take a single chemistry class. If I would have had to have taken a chemistry class, I'd still be at
in
Texas
college.
Tech in Lubbock.
Right.
Yeah.
That's funny. Okay, so you come out with your ag degree, and then what happens from there?
So I guess it probably will make the story better if we back up a little bit. In high school, the last, I guess my sophomore year, after my sophomore year of high school, I had my driver's license. I went to work for an entomologist in Sinton, around here, a local South Texas town. And my job was to go out into cotton fields and check for different insects and report back to him what we would find, and then he would write up a prescription and go give it to the ag pilots, and they'd come and crop dust the field, right? So I did that for a couple of years with him. Actually, I think it may have been 3 or 4 years with him during the summers at probably my second, maybe after my sophomore year in college. With the background that I had, number one, the guy that I worked for was really, really well known among these ag chemical companies, and so it was fairly impressive that I had 4 years with him, and so I got an internship with a company called Zeneca and worked for them during college summers, the last couple of college summers, doing internships with them. And so that's what I thought I was going to do. Even in college, I was only dealing with cotton fields in Lubbock. And as you may know, that is 100% of what they grow out there. They don't grow anything else.
Yeah.
Got out of college, and right at the right time when I was getting out of college, all of those ag chemical companies started trying to, I don't know, better each other or buy each other out. And I was not going to ease into the job of an ag chemical salesman that I previously thought would be pretty easy to do. So I ended up in a town called Pearsall.
Okay.
Which is probably, I don't know, it's an hour south of San Antonio, between there and Laredo. Ended up there at a chemical distributor. So I'm still in the ag chemical business. The problem with that job was that's called the winter garden. There are 31 throughout the year. Back then, it may be more now. There was 31 different crops grown, and not a single one of those was cotton. So,
whoops.
It's like, well, great. So instead of being a salesman, I was an order taker, and because there was no way I was going to go out into a potato field, millions of dollars in one potato field, and
sure,
say, this is what you need to do. And then perhaps even ruin the crop. I wasn't taking this chance. I was there. That was actually consisted of 2 different jobs, 2 different companies. So our boss got us fired from the first one. But
Himself as well?
Yes, absolutely.
Oh,
mainly him, and mainly because he was gone, they didn't quite know what to do with me. So they decided, well, we're just going to shut it down. Well, another company picked me up, and made me their salesman. And I'm going, golly, okay.
I don't think it's a good idea.
Not great at this, but I mean, they really liked me, I guess, because they let me, I don't know, just kind of limp along, and nobody ever yelled at me. And
that's a start.
But eventually, all right. So here's the other part of that: is not only was that an all right job, but the rest of my life, what I didn't tell you is we also had a family ranch, still have a family ranch not far from Pearsall, at a little town just outside called Charlotte. And at the time, my brother, his wife, and Sarah Kate, his oldest, Julie was pregnant with Sarah Kate when I moved across the tank dam. They lived there in a house, and then Dad had built a little apartment onto an old existing structure that had been there. And when I got that Pearsall job, I just kind of asked if I could
move in,
if I could just kind of glom on there, and that worked out well. Like I said, my brother was there, his wife, and their new little baby eventually came along. I would go to that job in Pearsall and then come home and chase cows on 4-wheelers or shoot doves, it was a fantastic life, great life. All the time I'm wondering, how long are these people, can I keep this facade up of being an ag chemical salesman? So that kind of weighed on me,
Right.
Just how long can this, they seem to like me. How long can this actually last? So then one day, Dad was at the farm. We were in the garage at the farm doing something. And Dad said, for the right reasons, would you move back to Corpus?
So how old are you at this point?
Probably 25. We'll say 25. And nobody, once you leave your hometown, it's difficult. It's not maybe cool to come back to where you grew up.
Sure.
And I completely disagree with that now. But when Dad said, for the right reasons, would you move back to Corpus? I didn't even hesitate. I said, no way. No, I'm not moving back to Corpus. No.
Famous.
And so he left it alone. Yeah, right. Obviously.
Yeah.
So he left it alone for maybe another couple weeks. And then he asked me again. He said, hey, we need to talk about something. And it involves that question I asked you about whether you would move back to Corpus. And so we talked about, Dad said, at that point, I happen to know the world's biggest Mahindra dealer just happens to be in San Antonio, and I've got an in with them. And I happen to know that they are looking to put a location in Corpus Christi, and would you consider it? And I said, sure. What is a Mahindra? I don't know what you're talking about. What is a Mahindra? Who cares who the world's biggest Mahindra dealer is? Well, so it turns out Mahindra's a tractor. It's a pretty cool tractor. I'm sure we'll get to talk about them.
Turns out.
Yeah, we'll talk about them a little later.
Hit them up for a sponsorship, obviously.
There you go. That's right. Maybe so. Yeah. So anyway, he explained a little bit further what we're talking about. At some point, I just kind of said, again, I don't know how much longer this current job can last, and I get to try to be my own boss. I don't have to worry about getting yelled at if I don't sell something. Well, okay, sure, let's try it. And so we ended up partnering with that store in San Antonio. We moved into, lack of better words, use the brand. It wasn't a Morgan building, but that's what everybody calls that type of portable building. I think it was 16 foot wide, and if you counted the 4-foot porch on the front of it, I think it was 32 foot long. And we put a fence around that, and we piled a few tractors in there.
Sure.
And started selling tractors, and it worked.
There you go.
And it's worked now for 20 something years. We're not in that little portable building anymore. And sometimes I wish we were with just me and my mom. It was a heck of a lot easier sometimes than it is with than it
Kate, he
is
doesn't
now.
mean
But
that. He doesn't mean that, Kate, when you're
that's
listening
right.
to this.
So anyway, that's I guess the quick side of it, and that's kind of fun to talk about.
Yeah. So Mahindra, so you didn't, so anybody who doesn't know who you are, you also do Bad Boy. So did Bad Boy
That's right.
come along quickly after, or how'd that work?
Good question. Let me think about that for a second. I kind of actually lucked into Bad Boy.
Okay. So that was never like you went out looking for it.
Well, I was.
Okay.
You know, literally, if you sell tractors, you're going to have a line of zero turns. And at that point, you know, again, down in this little bitty building where I didn't even have a service shop, we farmed the service out to who's a friend of mine now, to a place in Alice. But
Okay.
anyway, the manufacturers that did not have a tractor store, the zero turn manufacturers that didn't have a tractor store or have any representation in Corpus, every one of them was coming. They were coming to us. And, you know, I knew I was going to have to work on them. I knew, and let me just say, I'm not a mechanic, but I had a simple set of tools. I knew that there would be some things that I would need to do to these zero turns that we're going to sell, whether that's prep them to get them ready to go out or just what. But anyway, one day my brother called and he said, "Hey, have you heard of these Bad Boy buggy things?" And I said, "No, I don't. I don't have any idea what you're talking about." And he said, Google that. Google Bad Boy buggies. Well, Bad Boy Buggies was this electric golf cart, high-end electric golf cart. It had two different motors. You basically four-wheel drive this thing. But it was the point of it is it's a silent hunting vehicle. That's how
Gotcha.
it was marketed. Luckily, when I Googled that, the very first thing that popped up was not a Bad Boy buggy. It was a Bad Boy mower. And it was, back then, the way that they would market themselves is they wanted you to see how accessible everything was. The fuel tank swung open, the seat came up, the floorboard came up real easy. There's not a thing on these things that you can't touch, get to easily, get to quickly. And I thought, whoa, wait a second. And then kind of researched them. They didn't have anybody down there. And so I called them, and we are now, we didn't start out there. I think that first year we sold, I don't know, 35 mowers.
The entire year?
That's right. Yeah. And now we sell 235 mowers. And we're one of the top, we're one of Bad Boy's biggest dealers.
So why do you think that is, that you're one of the top? Is it because your digital marketing agency is just
it could be
killing it for you? I think that's probably it.
He's quite expensive if you don't know. Yeah, there it is. That's the reason that we sell so many mowers, is because we spend so much money.
Yeah,
marketing throughout the nation, evidently, because we get calls from Maine wanting a Bad Boy tractor now with a snowblower on it.
Hey, we can't help it that our SEO reaches the ends of the earth.
Maybe we could try to help it.
Well, that's, at least it's not a paid ad. You're not paying for the click, right?
I don't know that.
Yeah. Well, yeah. Well, you also don't know how to hook up your setup here, so
just so everybody knows, I can't hear myself through these headphones.
And it's driving him nuts.
That Keith made me buy, with the microphone that Keith made me buy. But I agree. I hope that this certainly should sound better.
It sounds 1,000 times better.
I can't hear me, but whatever.
Yeah. So for those who don't know, we tried to record this before. He was using his Beats and no microphone, and it was not great audio. Now it is much, much better. So also, for those of you
if you're watching this, the other complaint that I have, and I don't think I'm a vain person. Complain. But my nose in this camera looks huge.
So to be clear, it looks the same size to me as it does in real life. So it doesn't look different. My gosh, you cracked me up.
I haven't thanked our Rat Hole, our sponsor, Rat Hole Drilling yet. Thank you, Rat Hole.
Thank you, Jeff. Thank you, Jeffrey. Who's the owner? Chris.
Scraves.
Chris.
Yeah.
Thanks, Chris. Chris doesn't even know. That's good.
I'm not sure Jeff knows.
Jeff doesn't either. It's fine. I'm not worried about telling Jeff. It's Chris, because it's his actual money. So that's the problem.
Right.
So, yeah. So obviously, for those who are listening who don't know, I'm Keith. I own Yellowfin Digital, and I got introduced to Clay when one day he was watching a commercial during COVID where I had done a commercial with my wife, Deanna, for Rally Credit Union. And he saw like Yellowfin Digital on my shirt. He's like, hey, I'm going to call that guy. And here we are, 4+ years later.
Something like that.
Making you one of the biggest sellers of Bad Boy Mowers in Texas. And that's doing it in South, and that's doing it here down south where we're like nowhere near everybody else. So that's actually a good thing. That's an impressive thing for you guys, because obviously you have to, we just get you the leads. You guys have to actually sell them. So yeah. So my background is slightly different than yours. I was born just outside of, I was born in Valparaiso, because Couts, Indiana, it's Kouts, Indiana. It does not have a hospital. It's a like 1,100 people or something like that.
How do you say it?
Couts. There were like 1,100 people or something like that. K through 12, all in one building. I was born there. I have an older sister. She's 2.5 years older than me. And when I was about to turn 6 years old, my parents decided they wanted us to have a better chance at a better education than what you would get in Couts, Indiana. Really long story short, my aunt and her soon-to-be husband were living and working in Oak Ridge, Tennessee. Oak Ridge, Tennessee is where they built the atomic bombs that ended World War II.
Wow.
The national labs there were three at the time. There were 3 national labs there. Some of the smartest people in the world just would go there to work on all things nuclear, right? So lots of really smart kids there because of lots of really smart parents. So therefore, the school system just was very, very, very good. And my mom was like, my mom kind of grew up all over the place. Her dad was in the Navy, kind of all over the place. And then my dad had grown up there. He had never left there, probably never thought he was going to leave Northwest Indiana. And they said, you know what, we want to get our kids a better education. So they hopped up and moved down to Oak Ridge, Tennessee. Education was very, very good there. When I was a sophomore, it was like in the top 10 in the nation of public schools. So it was very, very good education.
What did your dad do? What did your parents do?
Yeah. So my dad my mom was a stay-at-home mom. My dad worked for the post office. Not actually, he never delivered mail. He was worked in logistics. So at the end of his career, he was in charge of warehouses and tractor trailers of mail moving across the country, right?
Wow.
So he could kind of get a job anywhere, right? Moved to Oak Ridge, couldn't get a job in the Oak Ridge post office, so he worked in Knoxville, which was right next door. And he would just drive to work every day. Back then, I remember this, it was a long distance call to call from Oak Ridge to Knoxville, but not for him to call from Knoxville back to Oak Ridge. And my kids have no idea what a long distance call is. They don't know what that means, right? So they'll never understand what that actually means, a long distance call. Yeah. But so if you wanted to call dad, you had to like call him, he would say, okay, let me call you back. And he'd call back because it was free. So it was very, very interesting. But yeah, so I grew up in Oak Ridge, Tennessee, small town, 40,000 people, something like that. But, good life. It was myself and my sister. And then my parents, they had foster children. They would take babies, typically it was going to be for a short period of time. The baby's born. They don't have a place to put the baby yet, or the parents' rights haven't been terminated yet. So the baby would stay with us sometimes for days, sometimes for weeks. Long story short, they ended up adopting 5 kids. So there's 7 of us total. Yeah. And then there were something like 30 foster kids that went through the house as well. So it was
I'm sure there's a million stories. Mostly good. Was there bad?
I mean, for me, it was a completely good experience.
Okay.
My brother, John, who is like 6 months younger than me, moved in when I was 10. He was 9, about to turn 10.
Built-in best friend right there.
Built-in best friend.
Yeah.
Right? Built-in best friend. How cool. Could not have worked out better, right? So
how cool.
That was really cool. My older sister has a different view on things, because she was older. She was a girl, different. I just didn't care, right? I was a boy. I was like, I don't care. Like, whoever's here is here. Doesn't bother me. She apparently does not have the same recollection of things, which, I mean, that's her. That's how things went for her. And, we adopted one of my sisters when she was 14 and Taylor was also 14, which, it's kind of interesting dynamic, right? For boys, it's who cares. But for a teenage girl to bring another teenage girl in the house, I don't know exactly how she took that, but I'm sure it was interesting, right? So, but yeah, my parents from a very, very young age told us that, hey, you have to go to college. And you're going to have to figure out how to pay for it because, working off of a guy that works at the post office, they did not make much money. So you got to figure it out. So, while very athletic, probably not athletic enough to get a full ride. And they very much encouraged the academic side of things. Like, hey, you're going to have to figure out how to get an academic scholarship. We worked hard on academics. My sister much harder than myself, because I did just enough to try to get an A, and if I got a B, it's like, okay, cool, not a big deal.
Hmm.
If I got a C, it's like, ooh, probably gonna get in trouble for
Yeah.
that one. That's not
Yeah.
good. So let's not do that again. But my sister got an academic scholarship to the University of Tennessee. I had no desire to go to Tennessee. Just like you, I wanted to get out of there. Like, Knoxville is too close. I wanted to go anywhere else. I applied to all sorts of schools. I thought I wanted to go into something in forestry, wildlife, and fisheries type thing. Tried to get full scholarships everywhere, but probably, this is back in, the late 90s. It wasn't easy to figure out how to get a scholarship like it is today. Like, we
Sure.
didn't have Google, right?
Sure.
Ultimately, I had several partial scholarships. Nobody offered me a full scholarship except for the University of Tennessee. So I ended up at the University of Tennessee.
Okay.
Yeah, so my sister got a financial aid scholarship because my dad didn't make enough money, and she had a high enough ACT score. And then the next year, that jerk went and got a raise that put him like this much over
the top.
The top. So then the same, so she only had to have like a 26 ACT or something like that, and all of a sudden I was going to have like a 28, and I was like, well, dang. That sucks. Like, so now I have to do even better on my ACT scores. Or maybe it was a 30. I had to have a 30. She had to have a 28 and I had to have a 30. I was like,
because your dad got a raise.
It got probably like a $3,000 or $4,000 raise.
I was going to say it probably wasn't all that. Yeah,
it was nothing.
Just enough.
Well, and the funny thing is they weren't paying for anything for me anyway. Right. So like, it was all me anyway. Like, they couldn't afford to help me. So like, his income meant nothing to whether or not I could have a scholarship. But anyway, I couldn't get a financial aid scholarship because he made, probably $1,000 too much. So then it went from, I have to get a 28 on my ACT to I got to get at least a 30 to get this scholarship. So crap. So I was like, you know what? I'm going to study really hard, or not study. I'm going to like go to bed really early. I'm going to, be prepared to take this ACT. And then I stayed up until probably like 4 a.m. the night before because I was a senior in high school. But I pulled it off, got my full ride, went to school, didn't really have a clue what I was going to do. Because, again, my parents didn't really give me direction on, like, what you should do. They just, like, go to school, get a degree. Because everybody's getting a degree, right? This is the late 90s. You have to get a degree. I don't know what I'm going to do with it, but let's get it. So I went to school, but I had to pay for everything. So I had to work full-time going through school, right? So I had to get a job. I worked at the reservation center for Days Inn. And I would work from 5:30 at night until 2 a.m. And then I had 8 a.m. classes, both semesters that I worked there. So that was rough. Like, getting off work at 2 o'clock in the morning, and then trying to get home, get in bed, and then get up and get to the University of Tennessee in order to get to an 8 o'clock class was rough. So my college was not fun. I hated it. It sucked. It was just not enjoyable. Even I watched all my friends having a great time.
Mm-hmm.
And that was not my experience.
If I can jump in on you.
Yeah.
Kind of the same thing with me. All of my real good friends did not run quite as far away off to Texas Tech as I did, and they were in College Station, and they were in San Marcos, and they were having lots and lots of fun, and I mean, it's not that I didn't meet some great people in Lubbock, but I don't love Texas Tech. Just, it's terrible to say. It was a great place for me, but I'm kind of with you on that.
Yeah. I mean, I don't have I didn't make any friends at college. I made friends at work. I did not make any friends at college because, again, I was there to take the class and get the heck out and move on to the next thing because I had to go work. Right? I mean, I was working 40 hours a week, so it sucked. And then I quit that job because that was a really rough year. I started waiting tables, which was much better because I would get off at 11 or 12 o'clock instead of 2 a.m. So not great, but better. And eventually ended up working for one of my classes. I had to go interview somebody that worked in the agriculture type industry. So I ended up interviewing a guy at a landscaping company. Ended up going to work for them. And right in front of where the nursery was, like, I worked for them for like a day, and they came up and were like, hey, we want you to be like the foreman of the landscaping crew. I'm like, I've worked here for like a day. Like, these guys have been here since you guys started. This is awkward. And I was 19 years old at that time, but it worked out because I could only work certain hours because I had to go to school. And then there was an opportunity The building that was in front of the nursery was an old liquor store that had gone out of business. And I had bought a house after my freshman year. I bought a house. It was 3,100 square foot house, 6 bedrooms, 2 kitchens. It was built in 1906.
Gosh, Lee.
Yeah, built in 1906. Huge,
Okay, cool.
huge house in the hood. There was a guy murdered across the street from me the first weekend that I lived there.
No kidding.
No kidding.
Wow.
My mom was like, "You shouldn't move there." I'm like, "Yeah, it'll be fine." The first weekend somebody gets murdered, I was like, "Maybe it won't be fine." But it was cheap. It was $49,000. That's all I could afford, right? I mean, I was a 18-year-old kid. I couldn't afford anything, but I wanted a house because I thought, hey, you're wasting money renting an apartment. So I bought a house. When the opportunity came up to open up a liquor store, I did a cash out refinance on my house. Took that cash, which was nowhere near enough. It was $50,000, and put it into opening a liquor store. I probably needed $500,000, but I made it work. Dropped out of school, much to my mother's horror, because they don't drink. They still don't drink. I didn't drink at the time. I didn't know the difference between when they were bringing the alcohol in for the first time. I was like, okay, put all the tequila here, put all the whiskey here, put all the vodka here. And it wasn't because I was trying to be super organized. It's because I didn't know the difference. I didn't have a clue.
You were how old at this point? You don't
20.
even have to be, you have to be 21 to drink, but you can be 17 and open a liquor store.
18. And I mean,
18.
Especially so East Tennessee is super Bible Belt, right? Super Bible Belt. So getting a liquor license was a lot of work. Like, it was a whole lot of work. There's a whole lot of regulation about where you can put it, how close you can be to a church, how close you can be to a school, how close you can be to a liquor store, so on and so forth. So it was a lot of work, but got it opened. It was myself and a couple partners. One partner immediately went away, bought him out for nothing because it wasn't worth anything. And then the other partner and I ran it. I didn't hate it, but it was sitting inside a building all day long by yourself a lot, working a lot of hours. You get there at 8 o'clock.
Waiting for 5 o'clock for people to come.
Yeah. So you'd get there at 8 o'clock and you'd stay there until 11 o'clock. I mean, it was a whole lot of hours. It's just not what I wanted to do with my life. So luckily he was much older than I was. He wanted to buy me out. He still owns it. So I sold my half to him and away I went. Right. So, jumped around to different industries over time. I had a failed software company that forced me to go get a job because we started a software company for the mortgage industry in 2007. Oops. Really bad timing. Oops.
For really the younger generation listening to this, there was quite a crisis come. What was it? 2008.
08, yeah.
So I'm sure that's probably right.
Yeah. So we launched in 08, and it didn't fall apart all at once, but it was a very quick. Oops. Are we going to be able to make it through this? Spoiler alert: we didn't.
Okay.
The company did not make it through.
If you're wondering.
Yeah, if you're wondering, I lost all the money. So I'd also opened a landscaping company. Sold that. All the money I made from the liquor store, the landscaping company, all of it gone. Had to go get a job. Like, I was about to start living off credit cards. I was like, oh crap, I got problems. So went and got a job at a car dealership. Did that for several years. I started off just underwriting used car loans. Like, it was not glorious at all. Ended up becoming the operations manager of 4 car dealerships from Vegas to North Carolina. Met my wife in it because she worked for the software company that was absolutely terrible that we used. We ended up having to talk a lot because the software was so bad, and she was my point of contact. I convinced her to quit, come work in Knoxville, work with me, and that's her desk right there. So she's worked with me ever since.
Wow.
So had Annabelle. You've met Annabelle once, right?
Yes.
Yeah. So had Annabelle. We got a traveling nanny that traveled around the country with us, right? So here we go. We just travel everywhere because I didn't want Deanna to stay at home. She didn't want to stay at home. She wanted to keep working. So we would travel everywhere across the country with Annabelle in tow. And then she got pregnant with Graham 4 months later. That was rough. 13 months
Expensive.
apart. 13 months apart.
Yeah,
and
sure.
So very quickly we realized,
hey Graham, we're glad you're here.
Yeah. We love you. But we realized, hey, this is not going to work, right? Like, having having a baby and a traveling nanny going around the country is one thing. Having a 1-year-old and a newborn and a traveling nanny, like, the amount of stuff just multiplies because you have diapers for both, you got food for both. The whole thing was a nightmare. And we knew that it was going to be a nightmare. So we were like, hey, Mr. Car Dealership owner, it's been real. It's been fun. but it's not real fun anymore. I'm giving you a 6-month notice, and we're moving to South Texas. It took a while to replace the two of us because we were responsible.
That's very, very nice of you. Yeah, to give that kind of
Well, I mean, we were responsible for a lot at that dealership,
sure.
So it was the right thing to do, and he treated us extremely good. He takes credit for us meeting because if it wasn't for him buying this terrible software, we would never have met each other. He likes to give himself credit for it. So 6 months, and then we moved down here to South Texas, and that's how we ended up here, is because she wanted to be closer to her parents. We thought it was a good idea. They live literally across the street right there.
Right.
Works out great, and the rest is history, I guess. It started a digital agency. It kind of powers all the other businesses that we also own. So,
what is that number?
Like, we've got 4 right now.
Okay.
Working on a 5th one.
I was going to say there's probably 18. That would have been my guess. 18.
Well, so, they come and they go, right? Like, some of them work, some of them don't work. Some of them, we've just said, hey, like, it's been real, it's been fun, but it's no longer real fun. She just closed late last year. She closed her other eyelash salon that was in Knoxville that we had opened, because it's a lot of work to manage it from afar. And when a manager wants to quit and you got to go stay there for 2 months when you got a 9 and a 10-year-old, that makes it tough, right? So yeah, I'm working on, thanks to your referral to Jeff, I'm going to try to figure out if I can make money hiring people as a hiring agency.
Well, what I'll tell you is you're good at it. Yeah.
Well, yeah. Again, good at it because I made every mistake you can possibly make in those car dealerships.
You've never charged me for any of the people that you've got me, and I would like to keep that relationship if we can. And I'll refer to you. I'll refer you to everybody that
I will. I think that's a good deal. We'll keep doing it for free. But again, like, you don't hire very often, so it's not a big deal. It's inconsequential.
Thank goodness. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, again, it's because you hire good people. Like, you just take my recommendations. Keep doing that. We'll be fine. Do you want to tell everybody about? No, we probably shouldn't. We'll just say.
Yes, I really want to tell everybody about that. I don't think we should talk about it.
It's too fresh. I think it's safe to say that you made a hire outside of the system. Yeah. The system being my system. And it did not work out well. Is that safe to say?
That's quite right. That's a whole, let that cool off a little bit. That could be a whole different podcast if we wanted to.
Yeah, I think that'll be a different episode. But yeah, it didn't work out well. So, but yeah, I mean, so that's kind of my story in a nutshell.
Jeffrey, do not hire that guy.
Yeah, do not hire that guy, whatever. Don't do it, Jeff. Don't do it. So yeah, so I mean, so now I spend my days, managing, starting new businesses and chasing kids around in sports, man. We've made the mistake of letting them do up to 3 sports at once, which I don't know why. That was the dumbest thing in the world. Like, who does that? Only idiots.
Give me Graham's 3 sports.
Football, baseball, basketball. He was doing them all at the same time? All at the same time. And Annabelle was doing basketball. She was also playing flag football with him because we don't do real football.
Oh, cool.
Basketball, flag football, and soccer. So it was stupid.
I have to also, let's go back to Lubbock for a minute. You mentioned flag football. Yeah, we played a lot of intramural flag football.
Oh, yeah.
But we never won the championship. But I will say we did win the championship 3 years in a row in intramural inner tube water polo. We were the best.
Who knew that was a thing?
Who knew that was a thing? I've got the T-shirts.
You've got the okay. Well, you'll have to wear that on the next episode.
Okay. Okay.
I am a little bit.
We're gonna have to dig those out.
I'm a little bit upset that you didn't wear your rat hole drilling ink, since they're our sponsor. I would think that you would be nice enough to wear your hat.
Jeffrey, I need a hat.
So here's the other thing: is I have now hired or helped Jeffrey hire a few people, and he gave me a hat immediately. But here I sit. I've never had a Diamond B hat.
I don't even have one. I currently don't have one.
That's really funny. I meant to give you a hard time about that when I was over there the other day.
When Sergio was responsible for, not only was he
swag,
a great service manager when he was here, he was also responsible for keeping us in hats. And when he left, that kind of went to the wayside
I bet
because
Kate
I
could
don't
probably
ever think
handle
about
it.
it. I'm sure she'd be fantastic at that too.
Yeah, she's fantastic at everything else. I'm sure she could. I'm
Mm-hmm.
sure she can handle that. So anyway, so that's my. I mean, that's my story. That's how I ended up in South Texas. It is hot as hell here, but
Absolutely, yeah.
after that first year, I can't handle the cold anymore. Like today it is freezing to death outside. Like I can't handle this.
Yeah.
I can't handle it. I had to turn my heat up.
Hey, do you know a college? And I'm going to butcher this thing. I think it's in Tennessee. It's called Sewanee.
Yeah.
You
Sewanee?
know that? Sewanee,
Yeah.
yes. So the fishing guide that we fell in love with in Wyoming, a guy named Joe Irby, he went, say it one more time so I
Sewanee.
can say it. Sewanee. He went to Sewanee, and
Interesting.
I have always remembered.
I know it. I don't know. Let's figure out where that is. It's Sewanee. Oh, it's in Sewanee, Tennessee. Who knew?
Okay.
Who knew that was a city?
There's probably a trout stream that runs right outside that college.
Probably.
Because that's I don't know that's the only reason he went to that college.
So
but
it's like a little northwest of Chattanooga, just east of Lynchburg, where they make Jack Daniels.
Oh, okay.
So yeah, that's where it is. So it's southwest of Knoxville. So, but yeah. So what else do you want to talk about? What else we got for this episode?
I'm blanking, but I'll talk about anything you want, whatever you want to talk about.
I don't think we should get into politics on this episode, but we can start that on
Trump,
the next
baby.
episode. Trump 2024, it worked.
Yeah.
He won.
Heck yeah.
Let's keep it going. It's really interesting to me to watch all these people on social media. I'm not on social media very much, but to watch these people on social media that keep saying that, all you people who voted for Trump, now you're getting what you asked for. And it's like,
yes,
we are.
Perfect. Thank you very much.
And I'm not upset about that. You're acting as if like I should be upset about that, but no, I do think it's good. I feel like, Doge it's great. It's fantastic. I think we should do Doge for Corpus Christi because, dear God, we need it.
I'm sure that's probably right.
But my friends were making a joke the other day that I'm my own version of Doge because I like to run all my businesses extremely lean, and I always give them a hard time about how much money they spend on everything. And they said that, they're going to start a service where Keith goes in as Doge for, small businesses and just cuts everything. So my own Doge service. So if you need me, I'm available for hire. I'll just come in and cut everything. Absolutely.
I'll endorse you to do that too. Just don't come here because goodness.
I don't want to have to cut your salary.
I probably don't want to know. Yeah, really.
Yeah. So, but yeah, we can do politics another time. We gotta get Jeff on. I'm excited to hear some of his stories and hear your guys' stories about the shenanigans that you would get into. But yeah, I mean, I think that's basically all I got for this episode, man. It was good to get your backstory again. I didn't even know. I assumed you grew up in the area just based on the fact that I knew that your dad went to college with Jag. That's literally where that began and ended.
So Keith has referenced Jag a couple of times. Jag is, I love, we need to get Dad on this and let him tell the story.
Yeah, absolutely.
Like I said, Dad grew up in Three Rivers. Jag grew up in India. And at some point, they become the best of friends, meeting at Texas A&M Corpus Christi in whatever year that would have been. So mid 60s, I guess, somewhere in there.
Yeah.
Dad rolls back up to Three Rivers with his new Indian pal.
That's really funny.
Who I have known and still in contact with all my life. Yeah. He's one of my favorite people. When I was a little kid, I asked my mom. I somehow found out that Jag was Indian. I knew something was a little different, but I didn't know what an Indian was, except for our version of Indians. And so I asked my mom, is Jag? You think Jag's a chief? And so that's what I've always called Jag, and that's how he expects me to call him is chief. But his story would be that I changed my name in kindergarten. I changed my name to Tex, and that's what Jag has called me all of my life.
That is hysterical. So anybody watching, how I know Jag is because my family is pretty involved with Texas A&M Corpus Christi sporting. So basketball in particular, and Jag is a very big supporter as well.
As is Jag Chima, and Linda Chima.
And I have absolutely nothing to do with Texas A&M Corpus Christi. My wife graduated from there, but I went to a basketball game one time. I was like, well, this is fun. I mean, you can get like on the floor for a D1 basketball team. Like, why the heck would we not do this? Like, I want to get my kids access to this to like, let them see it. It just so happens that the players that they bring in are very good quality human beings, which is good for your kids to look up to, right?
Sure.
We got the opportunity to go to March Madness with the men's team 2 years ago. We had to go with the women's team last year. Got to fly on the plane with them. It was freaking amazing. The kids got to go last year. Just today, one of the kids from Ross Williams, shout out to Ross Williams. He's playing over in Switzerland. Fantastic basketball player, fantastic human being, better human being. He texted me and told me, hey, I'm going to send Graham one of my jerseys for one of my games over here. I'm going to sign it and mail it to him. And just today, Graham got it in the mail, and he's got a signed jersey from Ross, a professional basketball player that's playing over there. That? And Ross actually played in the G League last year during the summer. So, I mean, great guy. The fact that he still checks in on my son, like that just tells you what type of quality of player, the A&M brings in there. They don't necessarily get, the LeBron James of the world, because we're a smaller school, but the quality of human being that they bring in is very good, which, when your kids look up to a bunch of college basketball players, that means a lot, right? It means a whole lot. So we're big fans, and that's how we ran into Jag. And the fact that I ran into your parents one time at one of the fundraising events, I was like, hey. So it was.
Yeah, right. That's neat.
Yeah, very, very. It's a small, big town is what Corpus Christi is. So, but anyway, yeah, I guess that's it. We'll thank our sponsors, Rat Hole Drilling Inc. Again, you're going to get a invoice in the mail for your sponsorship, Jeff. So.
This was all Keith's idea, Jeff. Yeah, Chris, this was all Keith's idea.
Yeah, just go ahead and pay that. So anyway, if you stuck with us through this almost hour long, God bless you. Not sure why you did, but thanks for doing it. And we'll be back with another episode soon. Thanks a lot.
Thank you.